Ever wonder how the real pros in those high-pressure fields, think surgeons, pilots, elite athletes, how they just keep getting better, how they learn from, everything, even mistakes, under crazy pressure? Well, today we're doing a deep dive into something called reflective practice. It sounds kind of simple, but it's actually this incredibly powerful engine for continuous improvement. Our mission here is to unpack Donald Schoen's model. He's the thinker behind this, focusing on how it plays out in, say, clinical neurology, a field where decisions are just critical, and importantly, pull out stuff you can actually use for your own learning, your own decisions, whatever you do. So, Donald Schoen, his big idea boils down to learning constantly from experience. He gave us two main concepts: reflection in action and reflection on action.
Yeah, they're not just like academic jargon. They're practical tools.
Right, tools for how we learn and adapt.
Exactly. Reflection action, that's the thinking you do while you're in the middle of something. Right there. In the heat of the moment. For a neurologist, that means inside the exam room, while they're with a patient, they're running this internal dialogue, asking things like, am I jumping to conclusions here? Am I anchoring on that first symptom I saw?
So, checking themselves in real time.
Precisely. Or asking, okay, what's one quick thing I can do right now to get clearer on this uncertainty? It's like being a detective while the crime is still happening.
I like that analogy.
And they use specific techniques for this. Sometimes it's called real-time think aloud, basically talking through their reasoning inside their head, or maybe taking tiny mindfulness pauses.
Like just a quick mental breath.
Yeah, exactly. A brief stop to reassess, maybe when they're looking at complex EEG results or something tricky. The big danger here, the pitfall, is what psychologists call anchoring bias.
Getting stuck on the first idea.
Right. Fixating on that initial impression and then struggling to see other possibilities even when new info comes in.
Okay, so that's the inaction part, being mentally agile during the event. But what about afterwards? How do they lock in the learning?
Well, that brings us to Schön's second concept, reflection on action. This is the looking back part. It happens after the event is over.
Debrief, basically.
Kind of, but maybe deeper. It's a structured review. Neurologists will ask themselves, what went well with that patient? And what could I genuinely have done differently?
Okay.
Or, really importantly, did any cognitive biases sneak in? Did anchoring, or maybe something else, affect how I made that diagnosis? It's about spotting patterns in their own thinking.
So not just what happened, but why it happened the way it did, including their own mental process.
Exactly. And they have tools for this stage, too. Clinical journaling is a big one, writing down tricky cases, what they learned. Peer case reviews are also crucial, talking through complex cases with colleagues, getting different perspectives. Some places even use video-stimulated recall.
Watching recordings of themselves.
Yeah, maybe from a telehealth consult or something. It helps spot things you totally miss in the moment, maybe how you phrased a question or a subtle physical finding. But there's a pitfall here, too. Hindsight bias.
The I knew it all along effect.
You got it. Thinking an outcome was way more predictable than it actually was at the time. You have to guard against that to learn honestly.
Okay, this is making sense. Let's make it really concrete.
Yeah.
You mentioned neurology. How about an example, like that atypical stroke presentation you mentioned earlier?
Great example. Okay, so picture this. Patient comes in, maybe just dizzy, some vague numbness, doesn't scream stroke, and the initial brain scan, the MRI, looks normal.
Okay, so easy to dismiss, maybe?
Very easy. But this is where reflection in action is vital. The neurologist has to think, wait a minute, could this still be a stroke, maybe in the back part of the brain, the posterior circulation? Am I letting the normal scan anchor me away from that possibility?
So they're actively fighting that potential bias in the moment.
Right. They're questioning if they might anchor onto something less serious, like an inner ear issue, and miss the window for critical stroke treatment.
And then how does reflection on action fit in afterwards?
Well, later, maybe in a team meeting or even just in their journal, they'd review that case. They'd ask, was I tempted by bias? Did the atypical symptoms almost make me miss it? They analyze why it was tricky.
I see.
And discussing it reinforces how to spot those subtle signs next time. It continually sharpens their diagnostic radar, you could say.
That makes so much sense. Okay, so taking this out of the clinic, how can you listening right now actually start using this? What are some simple ways to embed this?
Well, it doesn't have to be super formal. Think about team meetings. Maybe start with a quick morning huddle prompt like, what's one task today that might challenge our usual assumptions?
I like that. Proactive.
Or implementing simple, structured debriefs after a big project or even just a challenging client call. Just asking two basic questions: what went well and why, and what surprised us, or what could we do better next time?
Simple questions, but powerful if you actually ask them consistently.
Absolutely. The key is making that reflection both in the moment and after the moment a regular habit. Because ultimately, that's the big takeaway, isn't it? Reflective practice, Schön's ideas, they give us a framework, a way to constantly learn, constantly improve. Whether you're diagnosing a patient or managing a project, it leads to better thinking, better communication, just better outcomes all around.
It really reframes learning not as something separate, but as part of the doing. So here's something to think about. How could you start applying these ideas, reflection and action, thinking on your feet with more awareness, and reflection on action, looking back to learn in your own day-to-day challenges? How could that kickstart your own journey of continuous learning?